I met so many people in my life, so many friends my age or like even older, younger, like everyone comes back to like, oh, what are my parents are gonna think?
Yep.
Like, what is my girlfriend gonna think? My boyfriend, like this, that. It's like, but what do you think?
Hey, Jake.
Hey,
How's it going?
good.
Okay, so let's tell the viewers and the listeners something I'm very excited about.
Yeah.
I hope you're excited too.
I'm
when I
always
share this.
excited for episodes.
We have a name.
We do. Yes.
So, fun fact to everybody is that we actually didn't have a name when we recorded the first 2
Nope.
episodes.
I mean, they don't know that because they obviously saw the episodes and they have the name.
Exactly. But we're very excited because we just aligned on, depending on the handle, okay? Because some of them was taken, so it was a little bit annoying. So it's either Just a Draft is the name we really want, but on some handles it's just a draft. And I think that really, it kind of all fell into place, right? As we were recording and we were kind of thinking of so many different names and what direction we wanted to go in. And then after recording like 2 episodes, at the end of the second episodes where we really aligned and we said, okay, no, this just feels right. So Jake, why don't you tell everyone where the name comes from? I think this was more your idea and I just absolutely love it.
Well, so in the first episode, I remember we talked about something and then we were just like, oh, why do you do things? Just because. And like, why are we doing the podcast? Just because. And then we kind of stuck on that. That was taken, unfortunately. But It's Just a Draft kind of goes with the same concept of that, where like, at least for us, we see life is just a draft in the sense that like you're always evolving, you're always, getting better each day. And like the point is there's no final product.
Yep.
It's just improving step by step. So it's kind of like on that note of we're always in draft mode and like we want to stay in draft mode.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like it's not, we don't want to be results driven. We just want to keep moving forward and just like getting better each day. And like, it kind of touches on with like the just because like when you're in draft mode, you have to allow yourself to experiment things.
Yep.
And I love the name for the podcast because this is what we're doing with the podcast, right?
Exactly.
It's so much experimenting. Like we're learning so much through doing the podcast because it's so much different, right? Than just having a conversation over the phone or just like, hey, Drew, let's go out, let's chat.
Yep.
Now there's so much like all the text involved, all the logistical stuff. So like we're learning a lot, right? But we're allowing ourselves the space to learn, and we don't have to be perfect at this.
And we're not perfect.
We're not perfect, right? Like
definitely not perfect.
We're just like we just want to keep improving and like do something that's fun.
Exactly.
So like that's the point of the podcast.
I love it. You said that so perfectly, and I couldn't agree more. And I think with drafts, it's also about making mistakes, right? Making mistakes, erasing, going back, doing something better the next time. But if you think about it really, and like when I think of drafts, I think a lot of like something I've written, like I don't know why, like
go back to like school.
Writing an essay, right? And drafting and erasing. And it's like every single time you read over that essay that you think you're done, right? You're ready to submit it. You reread it and you're like, I could still change this. I could still change this. Or someone else will read it and they'll be like, I could tweak it, right? It's like subjective because it's a piece of writing. And I feel like that's kind of what it is here too, right? And you touched upon it. We're not aiming to be perfect. That's not the goal. And we're always going to find something that we can be better at. And I think that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
So we're very fortunate because you have a tech background. So
yeah. I mean, like it's still being in tech, like everything takes time, takes effort, right? Like even being tech savvy, like you still need to do your research and like play around with things. Like nothing comes easy, right? Like it's the amount of what you put into it, you'll get out of it, but what you just said right there about like reading back your drafts, like if we associate that to like our lives, right? Do you ever go back and reread your drafts, which is basically like your experiences, right? If you go back and you're like, let me replay some things that have happened in my life, and like that's the point, right? You reread your drafts and you're like, oh, it's still not good. It's still not good. But like, it's like life, right? Oh, past experiences, we can keep improving. We can keep what I did in the past doesn't mean I'm going to redo that today, So like it kind of touches on the topic of happiness as well.
Which is the topic of today's episode.
It is.
What a great segue, Jake.
Talk to me.
That's awesome.
Yes.
That's awesome. Happiness. So I think it's happiness, but it's also the pursuit of happiness, right? And not always being happy all the time, and just that doesn't magically happen, right? It would be nice, but I think there is work to get there, and sometimes it's not always, we'll go back to the concept of linear, which I think we spoke about in the first or second episode. And sometimes you'll feel more happy, it'll be easier to get to that happiness feeling, and then it won't. So tell me, you were talking to me before about this person that you follow. Why don't you tell me a little bit more? Because I mean, it was very vague.
Yeah. So a huge quote that got me into like reading more of his books and like a lot of podcasts. He does a lot of entrepreneurial work.
And who is he? Just so we're all on the same page.
Alex Hormozi.
Okay. And who is Alex? Because I know like.
So I identify a lot with Alex Hormozi because we have like similar, experiences in our younger age. Like he's someone who was very ambitious, a bit introverted as well.
Okay.
He had a special relationship with his dad. He was looking for validation through his dad.
Okay.
It kind of it made it difficult for him to navigate his 20s, and now he's at a much better place. But so essentially, he was really into fitness. So he started all these like gym franchises and stuff.
Nice.
That's how like his businesses came about.
Okay.
Now he has another business. I think it's like acquisition.com. I'm not too familiar with it.
Okay.
But I really like him for like the personal side, what he brings to, bettering yourself. And also I think what allowed him to reach that level of success.
Okay.
And one thing he said is that you've already achieved goals you said would make you happy.
Yeah.
And I think when I heard that, because before I heard that, I didn't know much about him.
Okay.
And I heard that through one of his podcasts, and then it got me like, whoa, that really like stuck with me, because that's how I felt like my whole life about, once I have this, then I'll be happy. Or once I have that, then I can start doing X, Y, and Z,
Like
So
conditional.
it's conditional, right? Like it feels like happiness is based on external things that come into your life. And I feel like when you talk about happiness, it revolves around that. How much you want to make per year, what car you want to drive, where you want to live, who you want to date, like things like that. And I was guilty of that as well. I was like, and not too long ago as well, of like, once I have this job, once I live in this place, and now I have these things, and you sit there and you're like, wait, like that hasn't really changed my level of satisfaction or how fulfillment, like, and happiness to me is like when that state of mind that you're in every day when you wake up, and like you just know you're doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Like you can't explain it. You just like wake up and it's just a feeling.
Yeah, it's hard to explain. And also everyone's pursuit of happiness, I think, will be different, right? My pursuit of happiness will be much different than yours. Yeah. So like it's in one point, like you can take advice from other people on how to be happy, what to do, right? But only you'll really know, like, are you truly happy with what you're doing right now, or where you're at in life. Yeah. So, and I realized for me, it has very little to do with everything that's external.
And let's keep in mind here, external, you can't control.
At all.
So it's like you're putting your happiness into other people's hands in a certain sense, or other things. Like I'm saying it's not necessarily people, because if it's like you're aiming for a certain salary, that's not necessarily a person, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a situation maybe. But you're like really leaving it up to like factors that you have absolutely no control
like
over.
The universe in a way.
I was gonna say
if you want to get spiritual,
yeah, exactly. I was gonna say that, and I was like, okay, yeah. But that's exactly it, right? So it's nice when it comes from within, because then that's intrinsic, and that's something you can control, which I think is so much better in a certain sense, right? And it's funny you say that, because I'm actually reading a book right now. For those of you who are watching us, those are listening, it's called The Happiness Equation. Ooh. Want nothing plus do anything equals have everything, right? So when you want nothing, you have no expectations. Ooh. When you're willing to do anything, well, then you really have it all. And it's by this author who I'm going to mess up his last name, I'm telling you right now. So it's Neil Pasricha. How would you say that?
Yeah, you did great.
Yeah? Okay. You know what? We're just going to keep it to Neil, for the rest of the episode.
You did a good job.
Actually, fun fact, I bought this book on Amazon, a used copy, and it came signed. It's like a signed copy.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So buying used books on Amazon, you never know what you're going to get.
Get an autograph.
Exactly.
Now we're talking.
But it's interesting because Neil actually has the same concept, but he kind of verbalizes it a little bit differently. And it's like, when you're going through these, you're setting objectives for yourself, right? Like you want a certain salary, or you see yourself at a certain place, or you want a certain relationship, kind of the things that you were talking about. And then it's like you get them, and it's like, to your point, you don't really feel fulfilled. You're still like, there's still a void. Something's off.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, what's next? Right? What's next? Like, you start a business. I'll give this example, put values to it to make it easy for everyone to understand. So you start a business, you're like, okay, so I want to make $1,000 in sales. And then you reach it and you're like, oh, yes. Then you're like, it's not enough. I want 10,000. and you're going to work hard to reach it. And you're going to want 100,000, right? And it's never going to be enough.
It's never enough.
So when you put your happiness like that and you really kind of base your happiness on objectives and achieving those objectives, you're never really going to get to that true happiness. The true happiness, what Neil says in the book, is that it really needs to come from within. And then once you're happy, you can start building those objectives. And then no matter what happens, if you're happy at a baseline, then you'll be more satisfied than someone who's not. Does that make sense? Like
that makes total sense. I'm actually curious to get your opinion on what actually, when you talk about that baseline, like what is that baseline? Like we said, I think it could be different for a lot of people, right? So like, let's say for you, what would be the baseline?
I think for me, it's to your point, it's waking up every morning with a sense of like, it's almost like a sense of like peace, like not stressed, not nervous. And I think achieving that state, for me anyways, it's with the little things. It's
100%.
Not about the big accomplishments. It's the small things. And I really started appreciating the small things in my life that I have control over. So for example, starting my morning every single morning, reading a book for 45 minutes before I start my day. That to me puts me in a state of happiness.
Yeah.
Or going for a walk when it's a beautiful day outside. That makes me happy. And so I'm not saying that my life is perfect and my life is always happy.
No, for
probably
sure.
yours isn't either. I think no one's is.
No.
But when you're in this state of happiness and things happen to you, it's easier in a sense to bounce back from them or to deal with them, because you're already, when you're happy, you're positive, right? I mean, I kind of associate both. So then it's like, okay, something happens, but at a baseline, I'm happy, I'm positive. So it's easier to bounce back from those things versus if I'm unhappy and I'm going through these tragedies or bad news and things that are happening, then it's easier to stay in that negative slump.
Yeah. Honestly, on that note, what you just said about like easier to bounce back, like the only thing I'm thinking right now about that is like, when you're doing something that you don't really want to do, or like you're doing something that you're doing it for someone else. Yep. And when things get hard, you don't have enough motivation or passion for what you're doing, that it's so much harder to get through it, right? Because you're just not passionate about that. You're not doing it for you. You're not doing it to achieve your own happiness. Exactly. You're maybe responding to all the external stuff that maybe society's telling you to do, your parents are telling you to do, your friends, whatever. So like that, really in the small things, when you're really waking up in the morning, you're doing the things for yourself. Like this is what you're doing and this is what you want to do. Like it'll be so much easier. Like you said, we all have bad days, right? Like not every day is going to be a good day. Like you could still go into work, your colleagues are going to, piss you off or something. Someone said something is going to annoy you. I don't know. There's traffic. Like there's all these things, right? But when you're truly aligned with what you want to be doing and like living the life you envision yourself living. And like you said, it's rarely in like all this like flashy stuff, like that happiness actually happens. It's really in the small things. And one thing for me, like with all the small habits you described, was like reframing my narrative in my mind of saying, I get to go on a walk today.
Yes.
I get to go to the gym today. Even like I get to clean my apartment. Like things like that, reframing, being like, I could be in a position where I couldn't even do those things maybe. So I get to actually do those things.
It's a very good point.
That has,
I have to, right?
I have
Is
to.
That what you're
Exactly. It's like I get to spend time like cleaning up my space to have a nice environment. I get time to go and take care of myself, take a walk, move, like some people don't have that opportunity.
True. The other thing is I want to.
Yeah.
Not I have to. I'm very preconditioned to I have to go for a walk. But I want to go for a walk. I don't have to. I want to. So I get to and I want to. I think it's the mindset shift. It makes a big difference.
100%. Yeah. I mean, everything starts from up here, right? The mindset, how you see things, right? Like, and obviously how you see things is based on your experiences, on your emotions. So like even, in very emotional situations, like it's hard to just, sit here and say like, oh, everything's perfect. Like I get to be sad, you know what I mean? But like on the daily basis, like it's a constant struggle. It's like an everyday thing that you have to wake up and like you have to think that way, So like, on that topic, like if I asked you really today, like, are you happy?
You beat me to it. I was going to ask you. Anyways, the question's coming right back at you. So get ready. You can think of an answer.
It's a hard one. It's a hard one.
And, I think I was pretty fortunate this year that I really you know, obviously we've heard it a million times, right? New year, new me, January 1st of the new year. It's like, I'm going to be a totally new person.
I'm going to go to the gym for 2 whole weeks.
Right? Exactly. And funny enough, they see all the gym memberships go up in Jan.
They
and
make
then
a
just
killing.
Kind of it trickles, you know, slow down the number of people that walk in every day. But, you know, I think in 2024, I really I embodied the new year, new me. And I think it was easier for me this year because I started a new job at the top of the year. So I really got to close one chapter in December. I started a new chapter in January, and work, you know, whether we like it or not, takes up a lot of our time, right?
100%.
Like all of our days. So by starting in this new environment, I was like, okay, I'm already starting something new with work. So might as well start something new with myself too. And so really
I love that.
The mindfulness, the intention, like intentionality and kind of
being intentional about it.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. And one of the things that I did, and this has made a really big difference, as small and as crazy as it may seem, you might not even believe me, but at the beginning of the year, I set myself an objective to read books. Okay. It's something that I used to love to do when I was younger. And I feel like it was always kind of pushed to the side. You know, I'd be like, okay, yeah, I'm going to read a book tonight. And then it's like midnight and I'm in bed and I'm reading 2 pages and I'm like, okay, I'm falling asleep, you know? So I said, you know what? I'm putting reading at kind of like the top of my priorities. One of my top priorities this year. And I set myself an objective to read 20 books. Okay. And I'm going from like 2 books in 2023 to 20.
To 20.
I really was
That's a massive jump.
Ambitious with my goal.
Yeah.
But we're in July and like I've already read over 20 books. Why? Because I made it a priority. And for me, that moment of reading a book, and I'm reading mostly books about like, you know, how to be a better person or about leadership, because that's really important to me. You know, yes, okay, I've got 50 Shades of Grey sitting on my nightstand, but I have to say it's not the first book I pick up. It's not the one. It's this one here, The Happiness Equation. So, you know, it's like taking that time to just read and like get more knowledgeable about certain subjects. There's something about when you read, you're brought into a whole other world and you kind of forget a little bit the outside. And that truly has made a big difference. And that's why I'm like, you might think I'm crazy, but reading has made a big difference in my happiness this year.
100%. I mean, I don't think you're crazy at all. Like that makes so much sense. I feel like when you read, like you're so stimulated when you read, like it's exercising the brain in so many different ways. Like reading is huge. I wish I could read as much as you. I mean, I just have to be more intentional about it.
Yeah.
Like,
and it's making choices too, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that's one thing I want to get into. And I will come back to you with the question of whether or not you're having it. So please.
No, don't worry.
Don't think you're escaping it.
Don't worry.
But I think it's important to share with our listeners. Like we keep saying how it's the small things that we can make a difference, that make us happy. And so if I may share a couple of 100%. Things that Neil shares, right, first name basis, on ways to be happier. So literally going for a walk.
Simple, right?
Simple.
Easy.
Doing an act of kindness for somebody else, right? You feel good about yourself. Meditating, of course. Unplugging. So not always being on your screen.
Oh man, that's a tough one. That's a tough one.
Tough, and that's something I do too. You know, 10 p.m., the screen is off. It's done. My phone is put aside. And for the first hour of my day the next morning, I don't look at my phone. I read and then I go to my phone. I start with the text message and everything else. And honestly, throughout the day, my phone's on silent mode, like on sleep mode. I don't even get the notifications. Yeah.
Wow.
People must think I sleep all day. You know, it says like notifications are silenced. Like that's what it is. You know, so unplugging, having a gratitude journal is another one. So just, things that you can implement more easily. People might think, oh my God, I need to start doing all these crazy things to be happy. That's not what
little
it's about.
Consistent actions every day lead to huge results down the road. Like absolutely, like you, right? I don't know if you break it down on how many pages you read a day, but like if you break it down, just saying I'm going to read X amount of pages per day. Yeah. Or like I'll read 10 minutes a day. You'd be surprised after 6 months how many books you read.
Oh my goodness, it makes a difference. It really, it's like it compounds itself. So 100%.
I don't read much, but like this year at the beginning of the year, I was reading like 5-10 minutes a day, and like I almost finished a book, which for me is good.
No kidding.
For me is good. I consume a lot of my content online, like it was just not the best, but like
it's okay. Well, whatever works for you.
Yeah, you know? that's the thing too, right? Like whatever works for people. Yep. Like what works for you might not work for me.
Exactly.
That's huge, right? When I see a lot of like, you know, self-help stuff or like people who, which is great, right? People are interested in hearing how other people like change their lives, which is cool. But like you have to take it with a grain of salt.
Yes,
like,
always.
Like what makes you happy probably won't make me happy.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? 100%. There's no like formula to happiness. If there was, like
everyone would be happy.
Probably depression would be cured. You know, so like
which would be nice.
Which would be great. I would love that, right? But unfortunately that's how it works.
I
You know,
know. So tell me, okay, let's start with what makes you happy. What are the things right now in your life that you're like, this makes me happy?
What makes me happy right now? I think really everything, getting back to my 20-year-old self.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is when I was 20, I got into like doing YouTube videos, and, you know, I really was doing it out of pure fun.
Okay.
Like that's what I love to do. And it's just like now I feel like I'm getting back to this content creation stuff, you know, and I feel like this is where I can really express myself. Like what makes me happy really is connecting with people.
Yeah.
Like being vulnerable with people. And what I found difficult throughout the years, mostly after the pandemic, was like I felt like it was hard to really connect on a deeper level with people, like have good conversations. Like I felt like it was hard to not want to protect yourself, or others want to protect themselves in conversations. And it just, I don't know, I felt drained. I really felt drained. Like the social aspect, like I've always been someone who was decently social. I'm not the most extroverted person, but you know, I love to have great chats. You know, our chats are always amazing. Like I always feel like replenished after chats like that. Like that's what really makes me happy. It might sound super simple and like super, I don't know, even weird to the point like this guy just likes talking to people, I guess. But like truly, and I feel like I'm starting to get closer to that through like videos, through like projects like this, like podcasts. And I feel like that's really what makes me happy.
I love that. And,
it's simple.
And before we go to the are you happy question, because once again, I will get to it. You talk about like videos. So yes, we do these podcasts, but why don't you give a shout out to your personal page? Because I know you also do stuff on the personal side.
For
right?
sure. So like short form stuff like TikTok, Instagram, like It's Jacob's World. Really the point of it is to give like everyone, you know, an entryway into my world.
Okay.
Like I feel like I'm passionate about a lot of stuff. So I figured I'd call it like It's Jacob's World, because I want to share all my passions.
I love that.
I'm not trying to like niche down on something. It's really me just trying to share my experiences with the world, hopefully inspire others to, you know, better themselves. And the bio is 1% better every day.
No kidding.
That's the bio. It's because that's really what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to build like good habits for myself through like content creation and, you know, some sort of accountability. And, you know, I think I got inspired through other people online. So I hope that I could be that person for other people.
That's awesome. I love that. Everyone go check out his videos. Give him a follow. You will not regret it. I have learned so much from Jake. I'm so excited to do these podcasts.
Yeah,
I just keep learning so much from you. So that's awesome. Okay. Thanks for sharing. Now we're getting
Are we going back to the question?
Yeah, yes, we are.
Thought I avoided it.
Nope. Are you happy? Can you genuinely say today, you know what? I'm happy. And if no is the answer, that's okay too, right? I want people to know that, you know?
I think happiness is like not a one and done thing.
100%.
Like I think it's a constant effort every day to try to achieve like happiness.
Absolutely.
I think it'd be great if I could tell you like a yes or no. I think I could tell you like the needle's going more towards the yes.
Yeah.
Because I've struggled a lot like in my 20s with happiness and like where I fit into the world, like where I fit in, you know, in my profession, like things like that. I felt like everywhere I go, like it just wasn't right for me, you know?
And probably a lot of people feel like that, by the way.
I'm sure a lot of people feel that way. And to be honest, like it's totally normal. Like you shouldn't like, and I think not just your 20s, 30s, like
any time
life, right? Like you're constantly like evolving, changing, rediscovering yourself. And I think really what for me right now boils down to feeling happier is that I'm letting go of a lot of stuff that I was holding on from the past, and like ways of being and like ways of thinking. And like just honestly putting aside the opinion of other people and really being intentional of doing things that I want to do for myself and not trying to please other people and how are other people going to perceive me. And like that's who I was in my early 20s. And like I said, like it was pursuit of happiness is like a shift. Like it's not linear, as we said in the first episode. It's up and down. So when I was in my YouTube stuff, like it wasn't about doing YouTube. It was just about, I was expressing myself as me. I didn't think twice about posting videos. I didn't think twice about who like saw these videos,
what they had to say,
like, and that's who I think I lost throughout the years getting older in my 20s. And that's who I'm trying to, you know, find again.
I love that.
And I feel like I slowly feel that person coming out again.
That's awesome.
And that's what really makes me happy.
Well, you know what's interesting is in this book I'm reading, I keep going back to it, but there was actually like a little passage where there was like I don't know, Neil or whoever kind of was talking to a nurse in palliative care at a hospital. And this nurse was actually saying that when people are in palliative care and they're asked about, you know, one of the biggest regrets in their lives, it's actually not doing things for themselves and listening to others and doing things because of others. So I think it's really interesting you bring that up. Now, a question I have for you is, how are you doing that? Like, you know how you're saying you're working on it, you're letting go of things, do you mind sharing a little bit more about your process behind that?
It's a like I said, like it's an everyday thing. Of course. Like it's not a one and done. Like we said, you have good days, you have bad days, and even if you decide to think this way, like you're gonna be challenged every day. You have to be prepared to be challenged. You have to be prepared that some days you're gonna lose it. Like you won't be on top of your stuff, and you're gonna be like, I was doing so good yesterday. Why am I not doing good today? Like that's just how it is. For me, I think, like we said, like the little actions that you described. For me, it's been journaling.
Journaling
that's really been huge.
No kidding.
Huge.
Point,
yeah, it's been huge. Like I really don't put any restrictions on journaling. As just like I wake up, I'll write mostly like whatever comes to my mind in my journal. If it's some days it's a few lines, some days it's a whole page, some days it's 2 pages. Like I remember at the beginning of this year, sometimes I would write in the morning, then I would write in the middle of the day, then I would write at night. Like, and the journal is just everything and anything. Like it could be like just a brain dump. It could be my goals. It could be visualizing something. And where it has really helped me was going back to the journal.
Yeah. And that's what you were saying, I think, in one of the episodes, right? Yeah. Is you go back and you really read and digest the information. You
go back because I think for me, that's what really helped me process some stuff and understand that like, oh, wow, like my intentions here weren't mine.
Oh.
And I'm like, and these are things that if we just go about our lives, right? Like you could not think twice about them. You're like, yeah, everything's good. Like I'm doing what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
Then you think back and it's not even like big things. It's like specific situations sometimes. And I read back and I'm like, wow, I was speaking out of X, Y, and Z. I wasn't speaking out of the heart. I wasn't speaking out of who I wanted to be or who I want to evoke. I was like bending myself for whatever situation, you know what I mean? Yeah. And like doing that really, you know, puts things in perspective, especially when you read back, you're like, wow, I wrote this.
Right.
Like on pen and paper, like it hits different.
Can I ask you, like, when you're going back to read, like, are you just flipping a page open and like, oh, this is the page I'm like analyzing today? Or like, do you go back to a specific time, like intentionally, like, or is
sometimes it's random, sometimes it's intentional. Okay. I like, what I like is that you can really see the natural progression of yourself, which I also want to do through like documenting like my life on video. It's kind of like a video journal instead of a paper journal.
Exactly.
So like you remember, right? Like the natural progression of your life and you're like, oh, I remember this time in my life. Like that was
rocky or great. Or...
So it's like, let me go revisit it, but you have to be, I'm trying to be intentional about it. Okay. Like if I'm on a good day, then I'm like, let me go revisit that because I feel like I'm more up. I'm more able to be honest with myself.
Yep.
Because it takes honesty, right?
Yep.
It's not just about like pinpointing like who did what, right? It's about understanding your place in situations, scenarios. It's not about other people. It's about you.
And I think it's honesty, but it's also vulnerability coming back
100%
to that.
Vulnerability.
It's tough. You're opening yourself up to yourself.
And it's tough. Like it's hard. It's a tough process. And some days you don't want to do it. And you know, like I said, there's good and bad days, but like vulnerability is a huge one. Like I don't think I'm quite where I want to be yet on vulnerability.
Yep.
Like I think I'm on the right track, but achieving the most, like being very vulnerable online is what I think will lead me to being like very happy, because that's where I feel like I'll be able to connect with other people. I'll be able to really be like do things for myself, because there's no protection. There's no shield. The shield's down.
Yeah.
Like here I am.
Right?
Like judge me, do whatever you want. Yeah. So it's kind of like, this is your fear, right? The fear of being judged, the fear of what other thinks of you. So like just face that fear in that way. I'm not saying like it's easier said than done.
Of course.
But if you're intentional about facing that fear, like, you know, there's no way you won't achieve a certain amount of happiness at one point. And I think that's, so many people I think are affected by that. The fear of what other people think.
Yes. Oh my God.
You know, and I think that's a big like conflict when it comes to people really living the life they want to live.
Yeah.
Is like what other people can think. I met so many people in my life, so many friends my age or like even older, younger, like, everyone comes back to like, oh, what are my parents are gonna think?
Yep.
Like, what is my girlfriend gonna think? My boyfriend, like this, that. It's like, but what do you think? Right? What do you think? And like, I feel for me the past few years, like I wasn't thinking. It feels like, what do you think? If it's like, oh, I wasn't really thinking. I was just like going through the motions, you know? So it's like a gift and a curse, right? To take the time to process some stuff. Like it helps you, but it's not an easy task to do.
No, and I think it's easy to fall into that trap, if you want to call it, of, you know, what are other people going to think of me? Like I'm victim of it 100%. And I try to say, okay, no, it's fine. But at a certain extent, like I still want to make, let's say, my parents proud, right? And, you know, I was fortunate that they didn't put a lot of pressure on me when I was younger, but I would get the occasional comments from my father of, oh, you know, be a doctor, or like, oh, be a lawyer, be a dentist, you know, the typical. And like, I was strong enough at the time, and, you know, I had my mom, and, you know, my dad wasn't like super pushy about it, but I was strong enough to say, no, like I'm going to do my own thing, and I can make you proud doing something else. But you see, again, it's the, I can make you proud in what I do.
But see, so that's a tough one though.
Right?
Yeah. But like that's a tough one, right? Cause it's all like rooted in external stuff, which is like, why do people want you to be like a dentist, doctor, whatever, lawyer? Because what, status, money, like exactly. As if that drives happiness.
That's right. That's a very good point. Well, anything else to share on this topic, or we start wrapping it up?
I mean, I could go on for hours, but like.
Okay, so we just before we wrap things up, we spoke a lot about community, and one of the things that, you know, you really love is connecting with people, and that's something I love as well. And so we want to invite, I think, our viewers and listeners to interact with us. Yeah. Right. Like there's no barriers. Send us questions.
Pop some questions in there.
Things like that if you want. Like what we were saying, we were talking to each other. We were saying we're not life coaches, but we can give you our point of view.
Yeah. We won't give you advice. We'll give you our opinion.
We'll give you our opinion. So send through some questions, any comments, any feedback, and we'll catch you at the next episode.
Yeah. That was a great episode.
All right. That was awesome. Okay. Bye, everyone.